This is Talking Foreign Policy, a critical look at Canada's role abroad, and I'm Eve Engler. Today we're going to talk about the fact that Israel has unleashed a full-scale attack on Iran that appears designed to overthrow the government, cripple the country, boost Netanyahu politically, and take attention away from its genocide in Gaza. Prime Minister Mark Carney has immediately backed Israel's attacks. He put out a statement on Friday saying Iran's nuclear program has long been a cause of grave concern, and its missile attacks across Israel threaten regional peace. Canada reaffirms Israel's right to defend itself and to ensure its security. In other words, he ignores the fact Israel is the one that launched the attacks. To discuss this, we have the president of the Iranian Canadian Congress, Mona Ghassemi. First of all, thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy. And can you just sort of give what's your perspective on your reaction to Israel's initial strikes and attacks?
First of all, thank you for having me, Eve. And yeah, of course, when I first heard the news, it's quite upsetting because we see that civilians were targeted in this attack. And it's not a surprise. Of course, Israel has been threatening, and there have been previous strikes, and it's not quite, I mean, killing civilians is not a surprise, of course, with the genocide going on in Gaza. So, of course, I was initially concerned about my family. I think most Iranians and Iranians in the diaspora would immediately call home. I think this is the normal human response. And then, of course, it, it's it's quite clear that this is part of their stated goal to um, for regime change, and this is a long-standing goal of both Israel and the United States. They are not happy with Iran having sovereignty, and I think Israel wants to be the only power in the region. Um, and they have goals for greater Israel, and it's the same plan as, let's say, most recently in Syria, but also they have stated that it's the same plan as they had for Libya with the disarmament. So this idea that it's um, a constant threat, fear mongering around Iran's nuclear program, while Israel has its own nuclear capabilities, and unlike Iran, is not a signatory to the non-proliferation agreement, the treaty. Um, it's quite, for those of us who are paying attention, I think it's quite obviously double standards are being applied, and it's a clear act of aggression. And despite the fact that Netanyahu, he likes to say that, he likes to directly address the Iranian people and say that he's doing this for them. I think most of us who are paying attention and are clear-headed about this can see that this is um, not the case at all.
Yeah, when you look at what they've done in Gaza, they clearly don't care much about human life or respect sovereignty. And obviously, their attacks in Lebanon and continued occupation in Syria and hundreds of attacks in Syria over the past 6 months or so. Um, but now the Canadian government's response to this is that basically the statement where Israel has a right to defend itself, even though it's of course Israel that launched the attacks. What's your reaction to Carney's statement and Anita Anand's statements?
It's quite, it feels like we're in some kind of like crazy like all like world. It doesn't make sense. It's everything is backwards. Like we're in a backwards world, and they are criticizing Iran. And the first every time Iran has responded to previous attacks by Israel, um, and only being having targeted attacks, targeting military infrastructure and not targeting civilians at all. They criticize Iran and they act as if Iran is the aggressor or Iran is initiating these attacks unprovoked when they're clearly provoked. And it's so twisted. It's so twisted. It just shows how clearly Canada is falling in line with um, Israel and United States imperial axis. It's just, it doesn't, yeah, it's I guess what you call double speak, to go back to that. People like to quote 1984, and it, it's shameful, really. It's shameful. It's twisting of the facts, and we should hold our elected representatives to better standards.
Yeah, and I think it's possible, and I would say likely that there is some degree of Canadian military involvement through NORAD or through the Canadian base in Kuwait or through CENTCOM, U.S. CENTCOM, where we know there are Canadians, obviously in NORAD, lots of Canadians, and NORAD supports. Intelligence gathering and stuff like that. And so I venture to guess there's a likely chance that Canada has at least some military role. We might find out that there's a bit more than just some. Now, what is the Iranian Canadian Congress calling on the Canadian government? Like, what do you want to see? I mean, I think that part of enabling Israel to do this, is that Canada has done so many things to isolate Iran, whether that's cutting off diplomatic relations, whether that's listing Iran as a state sponsor of terror. Of course, Israel's not a state sponsor of terror. Whether that's that listing of the IRGC. There's a whole series of sanctions. There's a whole series of measures that Canada's done in terms of isolating Iran that kind of emboldens Israel to take this type of action. What are you calling on the Canadian government to do in this context, and maybe more long-standing your kind of positions on that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you touched on some issues that Iranian Canadian Congress has been calling out for a while now. Um, yes, I believe the listing of the IRGC as a terrorist entity um, makes it look less problematic with the attack, because they did target and kill at least one IRGC official. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know that at least one key official was targeted and killed. And um, th of course, IRGC is listed as a terrorist entity, but IDF is not, despite the fact that they blatantly post on social media of how they, their blatant disrespect for human life and killing children and mocking Palestinians as if they're not human. So it's very yeah, so I believe that does give a little bit more free rein for them in that respect. And we did call out the listing of IRGC as a terrorist entity. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's these actions affect ordinary Iranians, some of whom maybe did their military service with IRGC, not necessarily by choice. So this does have an impact, and it causes potentially more strain with immigration and visa processing, because there's already quite a long visa process for Iranians, which we have also tried to draw attention to, and hope that would be um, changed and hopefully expedited, especially in when Iran is under attack. We hope that Canada, any nation that claims to be pro-human rights and pro-democracy, we hope that they would help people get to safety. And of course, when they're involved militarily, it's, it's kind of a little bit, we know that the broader aims are different, but we hope that they would at least hold up their own claims of uh, yeah. So there's that, and we also with the lack of consular services, that's something that we hope Canada would expedite as well. It's a longstanding ask of the Iranian Canadian Congress. It makes life difficult for ordinary Iranian Canadians for ordinary travel. Everyone wants to visit their family. Of course, it's kind of normal for most, I would say, immigrant and citizens of Canada. But with the lack of consular services, it's like we have to jump through extra hoops just to, make sure our documents are in order. And so in the case of war, it makes it, even more scary, I think. And we would hope that the government actually, you know, take takes a stand and condemns the attacks by Israel instead of just coming to Israel's defense every time uh, they commit an act of aggression.
Well, let's hope that this war doesn't escalate even further. It looks like it is on a path of greater escalation. The Canadian government hosting the G7 summit in Kananaskis this week should have added diplomatic clout to try to press the G7 to rein Israel in. Unfortunately, they're unlikely to do that, but let's hope they do, and let's hope that this war doesn't escalate even further. Uh, any final comment?
Thank you so much, Eve. I suppose that I think we have to remember that everything is connected, right? And what the media usually likes to do is they like to separate issues so people are not able to see the broader picture. And we have to remember that really the genocide in Gaza is um, the main thing we should keep our focus on, and that Israel aims likely to further isolate the Gazan people to allow that genocide to continue and reach its end. As of course, with Syria, it was cutting off the support to the resistance forces, and with Iran, if Israel wants Iran out of the picture so it can continue this horrendous genocide that we are witnessing. So I think that it's important to bring people's attention back to that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy.
Thank you so much, Eve.